Hi everyone, today we are going to do our next IELTS 8 explanation in terms of Cambridge ones, right? It's about test 1, reading passage 2. The topic is about air traffic control in the USA, right? The way how the plane takes off and lands, its control, right? Alright, let's just try to do our best in order to figure out the correct answers in a short time, right? As you see, we have list of headings. It means matching headings, and the next one is about true, false, not given. And that's why we are just starting off doing the true, false, not given, which means it just saves our precious time, right? So let's try to figure out the keywords which are given in the questions, right? So the FFA was created, was established, was created, right? As a result of introduction of the jet engine. Here the word introduction can be a synonym to invention. It's not some sort of beginning, but it's talking about invention. And the next one, air traffic control, it means ATC started after, right? Started after the Grand Canyon crash, disaster, the somehow accident in 1956, and the beacons and flashing lights, right, are still used by ATC today. Next one. Some improvements were made in radio communication during World War II. Or made in radio communication, it means improvements, right? And class F, airspace is such airspace which is below 365 meter and not near airports. This is the keyword. It's not near airports, which means just higher, but just below this kind of altitude, right? It's talking about altitude. And all aircraft in class E airspace must use IFR. So which means uh, any aircraft, all of them, just belonging to the class E, so they must use IFR. And a pilot entering class C, so entering class C, airspace flying over an average sized city. Average sized, it's a normal size city. Flying over, right? All right, let's try to just do beginning. All right, and so an accident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon accident, right? In 1950. 6, you see we have this keyword here, 1956. An accident, crash, where? Over the Grand Canyon here, right? Occurred, happened, right? Resulted in here, establishment of Federal Aviation Administration, FFA, to regulate something and something. Here, we can see that in 1956, right? There was some accident over the Grand Canyon in the skies, right? And this has led to the establishment of FAA, which means a right. FFA was created as a result of the invention of jet engine. You see, here we have some sort of wrong information. Why? Because here it says, right, FFA was created, right, established as a result of something, but however, it was an accident which resulted in it, right? But here it says resulted as a result of jet engine. So no, it's not, and it's false. All right, and that's why we have to write like Sorry, 7, right? And next one. Air traffic control started after the Grand Canyon crash. So here we just acknowledge it had happened just in this given year, and ATC here. We have ATC here. So rudimentary air traffic control, which means ATC stands for air traffic control, right? Existed well before, which means here it says started right after, but here it says well before, a long time ago. Grand Canyon disaster, as early as in 1920s. Here, 1956, 1920, which means it's just somehow contradicting the idea and it's false, right? So let's try to write it down 8 here. All right. Beacons and flashing lights are still used. Beacons. Do we have such word here? Beacons. So beacons and flashing lights were placed, right? Placed here means just set, right? Um, Beacons and flashlights were placed along cross-country routes to establish the earliest airways. However, this purely visual system referring to the word beacon and flashing, right, was useless in bad weather, and by the 1930s, radio communication and so on and so on. However, we could somehow recognize we don't have such information whether right now ATC are still using or not, or just changed rules or establishments. We don't have such information here. That's why we should make up our mind as a not given, right? Next one. Some improvements were made in radio communication during World War II. Do we have World War II? Yeah. Second World War. Here, Second World War, just to the exact synonym to the word World War II. And let's just try to read from the beginning, right? In the 1940s, ATC centers could and did take advantage of the newly developed radar and improved radio communication. Excellent. It says, yeah, so by that, right? So it says by the Second World War. But the system remained rudimentary. And that's why this should be true, right? And let's write it down 10 here. However, it would be somehow impossible, or let's write 9 here, even though it's not the exact location, because there is no any location when it comes to the not given, right? 11th one. Class F airspace is airspace which is below 365 million, not near airports. You see, it doesn't. It's not situated just in the just nearby, right? And it should be below this altitude, and it belongs to the class F. So if we say class F, there should be class A, B, C, D, right? So let's see what we have, and let's try to figure out, just pay attention to the word this number, because this number could be somehow keyword for us, right? Okay. let's try to pay attention here as we have this number here. In general, from 365 meters above the ground and higher, the entire country is blanketed by controlled airspace. In certain areas, mainly near airports, controlled airspace extends, so on, so on. Okay, and we have this number here. So, by the FAA has only to stay in uncontrolled airspace below 365 meters, while the pilot who doesn't want the protection afforded by ATC can easily enter the controlled airspace. And let's get to the word class F. Do we have class F here? Yeah, I think so. We have class F here. Uncontrolled airspace is designated class F, while controlled airspace below. So you see controlled airspace below 5,490 meters above the sea level, which means altitude it's referring to, and not in the vicinity of an airport is class E, right? And just if you pay attention here, we have uncontrolled airspace is designated class F, which means it's talking about class F. And in other words, we could say it is uncontrolled airspace. And let's just get to the top of this page as we have this information here. So let's try to work out the meaning here. Okay, in this way, the recreational pilot who simply wishes to go flying for a while without all the restrictions imposed by the FAA, sorry, has only to stay in uncontrolled airspace below. You see, uh, here it says we have the word uncontrolled airspace, which is below, right? Which is below. So it is below 365 meters. And here it says uncontrolled airspace is designated, referred to the word class F, right? And it says class F, which is below 365 meters. And that's why it's true. All right, let's write it down here 11 and here 11 also. And the next one, all aircraft in class E airspace must use, which means they have to use, right? IFR. So class E. All right, class E, we have the word class E here. All airspace above 5,490 meters is designated class A. The reason for the division of class E and class A airspace stems from the type of planes operating in them. Generally, class E airspace is where one finds general aviation aircraft, and difference between class E and A airspace is that in class A all operations are IFR. So let's pay attention here close. So let's pay attention here close, okay? So it's talking about 12. So the difference between class E and A airspace is that, so it's talking about the difference, referring to the word class E and class A. In class A, it's not E, but A, all operations are IFR, which means in class E, it's not IFR, right? So that's why it should be false. All pilot engineering class C airspace is flying over an average sized city, right? So let's pay attention to the word class C here. So this is because ATC control of entire space is essential. Three other type of airspace classes D, C, and B here, right? Govern this vicinity of airports. Here the word vicinity means near, nearby. And it should be some sort of advanced words, right? These correspond roughly to small municipal, medium-sized metropolitan, right? Medium-sized could be a perfect synonym to the word average size city. City could be a direct synonym to the word metropolitan. So metropolitan is a city, average size is a medium size, right? It's talking about class C, and it's talking about just class B, C, and D, all of them. Just, and that's why it's 2, right? So let's write it down 13 here, and let's get back to the first questions. I mean, first type of question, which means list of headings, okay? List of heading could be somehow, just could take our time somehow. That's why right now, in as far as I know, we just acknowledge the whole passages, right? The paragraphs, we have some sort of I mean, how to say, right? Imagination, right? Just understanding, just brief acknowledge of the passage, and it should be easier for us right now, right, this time. So let's try to figure out doing one by one. And I'm not going to read list of headings because it just somehow waste my time, and somehow how to say, it can confuse me. And according to my point of, I mean, my approach how to engage in some sort of list of headings, just I try to do just brief reading here, skimming, right? Let's do scanning and skimming here. Maybe it's not scanning and skimming, but brief reading, okay? An accident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon in 1956 resulted in an establishment. So there was some sort of accident happened in the skies of the Grand Canyon in some given year, and it results, so it has led to some sort of establishment, foundation of the Federal Aviation Administration to regulate something and something and something, right? So we don't have to read all of them, just we are doing a quick reading here in order to just how to save our time, right? So it's not about disobeying, right? So let's try to extract some sort of meanings, or some sort of, I mean, vital words which could convey its meaning, right? So disaster, aviation, disaster, prompts and action, right? So prompts here could mean result, right? Or trigger. Trigger could be a perfect synonym, right? Disaster. Do we have the word disaster? Yes, of course. It's about accident, and aviation accident, 100%. And prompts, of course, resulted in. And action, yeah, action. It means some sort of establishment, right? And that's why it's 2. And resulted in establishment is 1 here, right? So the next one, right? As far as I know, the paragraph B has been done for us, so we can skip this, right? In the 1940s, ATC centers could and did take advantage of newly developed radar and improved radio communication brought by the Second World War, but the system remained rudimentary. It was only after the creation, so there was some creation here, and then it was another type of creation here, right? Full-scale regulation of America's airspace took place. This was So fortuitous could mean by chance, or this word we have a perfect synonym, coincidental development. So two, do we have two coincidental developments? Of course. The first one is referring to the word radio communication. And the next one is here. It was only after the creation of FFA that full-scale regulation of America's airspace took place, and this was fortuitous. For the advent of jet engines suddenly resulted in a large number of very fast planes, right? This is the second improvement, second development, right? And this was the system, right? Communication developed radar, the first development here, second development here, and our the most important keyword means fortuitous, which means coincidental, right? So that's why it should be number 3. All right, the next one. Many people think that ATC consists of a row of controlling sitting in front of the radar screen at the nation's airport, telling arriving, departing traffic what to do. This is a very incomplete part of the picture, right? So this just covers the whole meaning. So let's try to paraphrase and to get the meaning what it says to us, right? So many people think that, so they have the idea that ATC consists of row of controllers, which means there are a lot of controllers in the department of ATC, right? And they just sit in front of their radar screen. Here it says they just sit in front of their screen, their monitor, at the nation's airports, telling what to do, what not to do, right? And this is very incomplete part of the picture. Picture here, it means imagination, right? Conception. And so let's try to all right, just cross it out, right? It's setting altitude zones, oversimplified view. Of course, it's oversimplified. Oversimplified means wrong, no longer true idea, right? Here, incomplete part of the picture. Incomplete part of the picture means oversimplified view. View could be a perfect synonym to the word picture. I mean, the picture in our mind, right? And that's why the answer should be 5, right? So 5. The answer is 5, and let's write it down 3 here. The next one. To meet this challenge, following elements were put into effect. So put into effect, which means just were take into actions, right? First of all, some ATC extends over virtually the entire United States, in general from 365 meters above the ground or higher. As far as I know, I have said that this number refers to the word altitude. So the level of the ground and the sea, right? So setting altitude zones. This could be somehow a perfect word. Altitude zones. Of course, it's talking about altitude zones here. It's talking about altitude zones here. And do we have the word setting? Because they should set the parameters, right? So of course, following elements were put into effect. First of all, they set altitude zones like from 365 meters above the ground or higher, right? And then FFA has only to stay in uncontrolled space below 365 meter, while the pilot who doesn't want the protection afforded by the ATC can easily enter the controlled zone, right? So here, this is totally talking about, it's just all about setting altitude zones. And that's why we have to put number 4 here. And let's write it down 4 here. All right, 4 here and here as well. The next one, the FFA then recognizes two type of operational environment, right? In good meteorological conditions. And I think, do we have bad meteorological conditions, right? Yeah, we have the word on a clear day, right? However, a pilot can choose instrument rating about which must also be held. So it's talking about weather conditions, some sort of, right? And all right, do we have the weather? Control pilot's license, defining areas. Weather, right? Weather condition. Okie dokie. It's weather condition, right? It's 8. So weather condition, number 5 here. Controlled airspace is divided into several different types. All right, designated by letters of the alphabet. This is the keyword, which could be used like a trigger word, right? So do we have first step tour defining a category, right? It's just dividing airspace categories into some sort of alphabetical order, right? Designated by letters like class A, B, C, D. So it's category, right? And 7, right? So let's write it down here, 6. And as you see, we have done all of them here. That's all for today. Thank you for your attention.